And let's talk about this. Vladimir Putin continues his appalling invasion of Ukraine. So should Joe Biden, US president, think the unthinkable and draft in the help and support of former President Donald Trump? Whilst in power, Trump reached out to figures like Kim Jong-un and Putin. So might the man behind the best-selling book, The Art of the Deal, be just the global figure to get a peace deal with Russia across the line? Should Biden reach out to Trump for help? Well, journalist and defence correspondent for the Evening Standard, Robert Fox, joins us. I'm also delighted to be joined by a man who knows Donald Trump intimately well. Of course, he's a top talk show host in the United States and a former assistant and advisor to President Donald Trump, Sebastian Gorka. What do you think, Sebastian? Should Joe Biden make that call?
Well, absolutely, if we want the tragedy of the Russian invasion of Ukraine to stop, because there's one thing that's for sure, this war wouldn't even have happened if my former boss were in the White House. Just a reminder of what we did when we were there. We blocked the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. We unleashed the U.S. energy sector so that we became a net exporter of oil, which really is the only way to hurt Putin. And when he was destabilizing Syria with hundreds of Russian contractors who are actually special forces officers, we killed them. President Trump told the Defense Department, kill those Russians destabilizing the Middle East. And in one operation, more than 200 Russians were killed by the Defense Department. What did Russia do? Nothing. Because Vladimir Putin, who is a thug, who is a murderer, was afraid of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump could stop this. But you know as well as I do, this administration calling up President Trump would be an admission of their catastrophic foreign policy.
And of course, Donald Trump called out Germany many years ago for their reliance on Russian gas. And at the time, German officials just laughed in his face.
Yeah, at 2018, I've used that clip on my daily show at least 3 times this week. He warned them at the United Nations saying, don't do it, stop funding Russia. And then the camera pans to the German delegation and they titter, they're laughing. They're not laughing anymore. We said, if you're a serious member of NATO, at least keep your promise to spend 2% of GDP on defense. They said no. Well, guess what, Mark? Now they're doing it. Now they are even considering starting up their closed nuclear reactors. So this is what happens when you have no leadership in the White House. And remember this. President Trump just gave this speech. He is the only president in this century not to have witnessed Russia invade a neighbor under his watch. Under George W. Bush, it was Georgia. Under Obama, it was Crimea. Now, under Biden, it is the rest of the Ukraine. That is just a statement of historic fact.
Sebastian Gorka, we can't turn back time. More's the pity. We are where we are. What would Donald Trump do now if he was in the White House and the invasion had happened?
Well, I've recommended 4 things. I just wrote an article for the Heritage Foundation. Number 1, unleash the U.S. energy sector once more. The fracking, the shale, the oil refineries, the oil drilling on public lands must be brought back so that we don't have to go cap in hand to Venezuela, to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia and the UAE, they're not even returning Biden's call. Nobody dared not return President Trump's call. So number 1, energy. Number 2, the troops that are in pointless places like Germany have to be relocated to frontline NATO nation states, to Poland, to Hungary, to the Baltics. And then the last 2 things that, God willing, are happening right now. We have to be arming the Ukrainians to the hilt when a neutral nation like Finland says we're going to arm Kiev. You know it's a sign. When Switzerland is being part of the sanctions as well, you know that people are turning, that the geopolitical jigsaw is being recalibrated. And lastly, because we have unparalleled intelligence capabilities, more military satellites than anybody else, we must be providing target sets, the target packets to Kiev so they can make the invading Russians bleed. Those 4 things together, and this war would stop like that, Mark.
Robert Fox, great to have you back on the programme. You are, of course, the defence editor of the world-famous London Evening Standard. Do you think that Donald Trump could use his skills in deal-making to actually reach out to Putin? Of course, Donald Trump did reach out to Putin when he was US president. He even reached out to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un?
Well, let's take the first part of your question. Yeah, he could try to reach out to President Putin, as he has actually said. But what has been noted is that there has been a steady deterioration on President Putin's part, and this is with people who have dealt with him from his own entourage. He's losing touch with reality. We are hearing these rambling versions of history and why he was doing it, and he doesn't seem to be very good at explaining exactly why he is doing what he is doing to Ukraine, what he declared he was doing, that he wanted to take it back, that he was going to avoid civilian targets. Well, he's broken his word, and the operation ain't going too well. So what I'm saying is that he's operating in his own reality, and I think that even an attempt by Donald Trump to reach out to him wouldn't get terribly far. I think the one that most stands a chance, just a chance, as things stand, is President Xi Jinping of China. Because he is Russia's biggest client, or about to be Russia's biggest client for oil and gas. But I must say, I'm very pessimistic, because Putin is very bunkered at the moment. He seems to be fighting some of his own staff. He's fired, finally, his head of overseas intelligence, of external intelligence, of the FSB, put him under house arrest. And I think we're in for a bad couple of weeks. And we'd love to give diplomacy a chance, but I don't think it's got a hope in hell in the next few days.
And where do you think China are at with this invasion, Robert? We've heard mixed reports about how engaged they are with the Kremlin right now.
Well, the mixed reports are absolutely right, because their attitude seems to be extremely mixed. I don't mean to be funny here. They're being very, very ambivalent, because at first some people were saying that maybe this would be a playbook for a grab for Taiwan. Xi is much too fly to do it as crudely as that, and there were mild tut-tuts coming from Beijing when the thing kicked off, respecting the sovereignty of Ukraine. There's a problem for both of them, and I hope my fellow guest will comment on this, because I think it's a very important fact. One of the things that Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, in their autocracy, can I put it like that, their dictatorship, fear is insurgency, upset at home. That's why they cracked down on demonstrators left and right. But there's one thing that Ukraine has stood for, and was the first in the field, was with the colour revolutions. I'm not being funny here now. The Orange Revolution. And we know that Xi and Vlad the invader really fear something going wrong like that. Quickly, Putin's running out of manpower. He's got to get more. We've heard about the recruiting the mercenaries. You're quite right, the depiction of Syria we've heard from our colleague. He's trying to bring people from Syria. He's getting Chechens involved. They're trying to really ramp up to get the grunts from Belarus in. But have you looked on paper? Belarus has a tiny army, but it has a huge gang of over 120,000 gendarmerie. That means thugs who beat up demonstrators. But they're showing great reluctance to go in. The break point comes in 2 or 3 weeks, when you have one of the twice a year conscription rounds. And if the conscription round comes up as the news about Ukraine is really getting out, I think he could be in real trouble, and there are signs of that already.
Sebastian Gorka, Robert Fox there, pointing out that the role of China will be pivotal, and Donald Trump's relationship with China whilst in office was none too good.
No, because he understood that China wanted to displace America as the most powerful nation in the world. They have a plan. It's called One Belt, One Road. They have a mode of warfare called unrestricted warfare, to use all means, economic, financial, intelligence, and otherwise. So President Trump finally realized that the elite was culpable in that in Washington, D.C. We're making money out of it, from Google on down to various members of the political elite. And he stopped that, and he declared a trade war on China. But the current marriage between Beijing and Moscow is a marriage of convenience, because China wants to defeat Russia as well, or become more powerful than Russia. Russia is in a demographic tailspin. It is a dying nation. The mortality for the average male is 68. They do not meet half, even reach 50% of the reproduction rate for sustaining the population. More than 100,000 Russians die every year, more than are born. So China has the manpower. China has the sheer numbers. But right now, Russia needs, Putin needs somebody to bail them out, whether it's picking up the slack from Visa and MasterCard, canceling operations in Russia, or anything else. So it is a temporary alliance, but don't be mistaken. China has its own intentions, its own plans, and it too wants to do an invasion akin to Ukraine. But in this case, it will be Taiwan, and it could be imminent.